Welcome to episode 43 of the Comfort via Discomfort podcast. I'm your host, Adam Beaumier, and in this episode, I had the pleasure of interviewing my friend, Nazli Ersen. Nazli has a really incredible story, and she's recently really changed her life from making the switch from corporate life to entrepreneurship. Now, she's done this in her 40s with a young son while also going through a divorce. So there's been quite a lot happening in her life. And I absolutely love telling these stories and really sharing them because at 40 years old or in her 40s, Nazli is making all of these changes and is really reigniting purpose and fulfillment in her life. And I think it's so important to tell these stories to help other people do this earlier in their life, right? And Nazli and I have talked about this a number of times. And she says, yeah, if I, my circumstances were a little bit different, or if I made a couple of decisions differently earlier in my life, maybe I would have found this sooner. And that's really the motivation for sharing some of these stories. So in this episode, Nazli talks a lot about love and purpose and fulfillment. She talks about her corporate life as well as why she made the switch to entrepreneurship and what that has meant to her. She's an incredible person. She has always been involved with the youth and trying to help them find their purpose and fulfillment in their life. And so there are a lot of lessons that can be learned from Nazli and her experience. So I hope you stick around for the entire episode. I love reconnecting with Nazli. Whenever I get the chance to do it, I jump on the opportunity. Her and I have talked a number of times about collaborating because we're both so passionate about helping younger people. So I hope you stick around for the whole episode. If you do enjoy it, please consider leaving a review and letting us know what you think. We absolutely love hearing from you, and writing a review on whatever podcasting platform that you are listening on or on YouTube goes a long way to support the show, and we'd really appreciate it. All right, enjoy. All right, welcome back to another episode of the CVD Podcast, where we are creating a mentally healthier world, one open, honest, and vulnerable conversation at a time. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing my friend, Nazli Ersen. Naz, you want to say hi?
Hello, Adam. How are you today? Thank you for inviting me. It's been a long time that we've been planning on meeting online. So I'm so glad
Yeah.
to be here.
Yeah, we met, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago online, 3 or 4 years ago online, and honestly hit it off really well right away. And it's just been a matter of time before we collaborate. We've been talking about it. So it like trying to figure out so many different ways that we can work together because we just have a lot in common. And you have a really interesting story. So I'm very honored that you are giving me the time and giving the listeners the time today to share your story.
Thank you, Adam. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I've like I said, only known you for 3 or 4 years, but as soon as I did meet you, I knew that you were somebody that I admired because you are very much about purpose and you're very much about helping out the youth. And when I saw that, I was like, this is freaking awesome. Like I love this and I need to know more. I need to know who this woman is. And so today I really want to get into how you've gotten to where you are, because obviously it hasn't been a straight line. And I know that from talking to you. So I want to know about all the left and right turns, all the loop-de-loops, and how you've gone through a number of different things to get to where you are and to do the work that you're doing today.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's been quite a journey.
I'm really excited to get into your story. Before we get into the details, why don't you tell me and the listeners a little bit more about who you are as a person and what you do for work, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. So, well, great question, Adam. It took me a while to actually figure that out, like who I am, because as we were talking, most of the time when they ask me, who you are, I would just, like go on with my title or what I do. So, but who I am, I'm a person who is very enthusiastic, creative. I like to turn obstacles into advantages. Very
Mm.
results oriented, loves to have fun. I'm a mom. I have a son, an entrepreneur. And I believe that the love is the most important ingredient in life for all of us. So that's who I am. And
Wow,
what I
I love
do,
that.
thank you. Um, What I do is that I work with people who have dreams. I work with youth, most likely, like you mentioned, who have dreams and are willing to take an action to turn them into reality.
Hmm.
I work with organizations that are looking to inspire and empower their team to enhance their performance. Specifically, my target audience for organizations are management trainees and early career professionals. Again, is the youth, like they're kind of, in the organization. And I really want also people to understand their own self, like purpose, right? So I also work with individuals going through their birth like natal chart. I keep adding new things, as I discover myself. So because if you don't discover yourself, like what you do is only just becomes your title, like in social media. So as I found out about more things about myself, I do individual, like coaching and life coaching session where I included astrology. So I really work with a birth chart that will encourage, their self knowledge, self reflection, and more through, like understanding, who they are, why they do what they do, what they want to focus, how they can connect with the world, and how they can apply.
That is fantastic.
Yes.
I have two specific questions for you. One is, why do you say that love is the main ingredient in life? And number two, why are you focusing on the youth?
Um, where because when you have love for what you do, and starting with yourself, everything comes easily. And what it comes to you with love is your power.
Mm.
And so when you find the love, then you find your power. And we always look love outside of, like who we are. And I think that's what I think the best ingredient that we put in for what we do, where we breathe, where we live, who we are with, then it's an easy equation.
Hmm.
Hard to find, but when you find it, it's amazing.
Yeah, I have a quick follow up question to that before you answer the one about the youth. Who in your life has taught you the most about love, or taught you to love in a different way that's most memorable?
um, my son.
Mm.
I mean, long time ago when I was a teenager, or when I was, I think, middle school, it was my grandma, from my dad's side, who taught me um, to just to be happy by myself.
Mm.
But then, when you are 13, 14, you forget that it's easily. And there's, like another, like a life journey just, brings more experiences into that love piece. My son. The other day, even every day, he shows me something, but the other day, what he told me was very interesting, and it kind of matches what we're talking. He told me, he's like, Mom, you're just very stressed out because you started your business and so on, but I think if you spend time with me, and if you have like a very loving, like a time and quality of time, everything is gonna be okay. Your business is gonna and i'm like
That's amazing.
and I'm like
Did you like
amazing.
did you break down and cry in that moment and just drop everything and go with him? Like, oh my God.
I dropped everything,
Yeah.
and I had something in my mind for spring break, so I booked a train ticket to Boston. So we went to Boston, we went to aquarium, we went to zoo, and I organized everything for him. And he said, "Oh, so you organize everything by yourself?" And I said, "Yes." Well, I'm very impressed.
How old is your son?
10.
Oh my goodness, he's so insightful.
He is.
Was he right? Did spending quality time with him make life a little bit easier for you?
Everything, it just everything just happened in a way that it was supposed to happen.
Hmm.
So when you don't worry, when you actually have a loving moment, even when you're cooking, when you're doing something, when you're talking to youth,
Hmm.
because that's why you're saying, like, why we're doing that, because if you can wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and you're talking to like hundreds of people, you must love that you're waking up at 6 o'clock.
Hmm.
So with my son, when I went to Boston and when I actually spent some time with animals, and with him, a very decent quality dinner time with him, I realized that quality of time, loving the moment, everything, everything works well.
Mm-hmm.
Everything works well. So it really worked in a very good way. Um, so yeah, the answer to that, it's my son.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible. And I think that honestly, I can relate to this so much because we're it feels like we're so busy with stuff. We're just nonstop do. I don't have any kids, so I don't have the calendar of a child added into my life right now. But even still, like with being an entrepreneur and whatnot, and even not being an entrepreneur, there's still just so much that we feel like we're doing, and sometimes we feel as if like, oh, I don't have time for that type of thing. But something that my wife has really helped me understand is that you don't have the time not to do it when it comes to quality time and spending time with loved ones and just really absorbing that, because you just don't know when the last day is that you're going to spend time with them. And just taking the time to be present with loved ones can just be absolutely like an absolute game changer. It's such a precious gift because in that moment you're not focused on anything else. The kind of like the pressure just is reduced drastically, and you're kind of just in the moment staring at this person and just loving life and not worried about other things. It truly is magical.
Yes, yes, he's my best friend.
Oh, well, that's amazing. I love that. Absolutely love that. So we found out a little bit more about like why love is the main ingredient, who has taught you the most about love. And the second question that I had was, why are you focusing on youth with your work right now?
Um, well, the short answer is I'm helping Nas 20 years ago. So
Hmm.
it's a very personal connection that if I had someone like this organization that I actually found 20 years ago, I would have taken different paths to happiness.
Hmm.
I would have, like find the love moments more. I would
Yeah.
have, like and get to know myself more. I think that's the key, because we can always, like be a project manager. We can always, like have a title that really shiny and cool, in social media. We can just get satisfied with that. But why we do what we do, it is just so amazing to fulfill you. And the youth, I found myself, and it's going to go back to actually my son again. Before I found myself fulfilling with youth, my son asked me one morning, like, Mom, why do you go to work? Do you go to work so that you can buy me Pokemon cards? Because Pokemon cards are quite expensive. So he made the connection that,
Yeah.
we need money, we need money. And mom works so crazy, since I started my career, in corporate world. Um, but why you do that? It's a very simple question, Adam.
Hmm.
It's not a difficult question, but you don't really get to answer that when it's not the right moment. So when that was the right moment, and I said, "Oh, let me think about it." So once I actually thought about it, everything just kind of, like unpeeled. It's like I went back to my childhood. I went back to, it's like, who would you like, Nas? Like, where do you put your energy in the organization? Then I found, like one of the global youth organization, Isaac is a global organization. And I connected with them through Turkish students. And then they're like, oh, Naz, like, please come and just do the keynote speaking or anything that, like, about the leadership and youth leadership, youth development. And then I really liked it. I was like, okay, I'm doing this with leaders, and, for organization for the past, like 20 plus years.
Hmm.
Why not I start with youth? Because that's where everything begins.
Yeah.
That's where everything begins. And I realized that I'm getting younger. I feel more energized. I'm living their dreams. I love to actually make a difference in their life, and that just like fulfills me. But I figured that out as I was experimenting.
Yeah, yeah, that's really interesting. You figured it out while you were experimenting. And You know, what's also interesting is you mentioned that you're trying to help Nas from 20 years ago. And this is a theme that keeps coming up with a lot of interviews that I have with people. And it's what something that me and you have in common as well, because I try to help out, the person in 2013, the Adam in 2013 that was so overwhelmed that he thought about taking himself out of this world rather than dealing with his problems, right? I think about the Adam in 2017 that was 24 years old and wanted to get a lot more out of life, but like didn't know where to start and just happened to stumble across something that worked. So I think about those two people all the time when I'm creating content, when I'm, deciding who I want as a guest on this show. And it's really interesting that you're thinking about that person all the time. And I mean, working with youth is so incredibly rewarding. They're so energetic. There's sometimes I think that there's less hesitancy
Mhm.
towards like taking action on their dreams, and a lot of times that's because of the stage of life that they're in,
Oh,
and they want to conquer the world basically. And so it's a lot of fun to basically work with people like that. So I can totally understand why you do what you do and why you focus on them so much.
yes. And you know why, Adam, one more thing that they don't have a hidden agenda.
Oh,
I
interesting.
I love that because
Hmm.
when you are in an organization, either the best organization you can think of, any organization, there's always a hidden agenda that you need to use your um, poker face or your like enthusiasm in a different way to survive. That's real. But the generation that I'm actually like the youth generation that I'm actually connecting today
Hmm.
is they don't care. I love I don't care, Even like I sent an invitation to them because I had a podcast yesterday with one of them, and I asked this question: Why your generation doesn't reply back to my invitation? Like they don't accept, they don't decline, they don't put any tentative. So because you know what? They relax, and like you said, they are willing to actually take the action. So they're more like a risk taking. For those of them, like people that are not taking any action, um, they're not really be able to stay in that ecosystem with Nas. So
Yeah,
that's
that
all.
makes sense. And I mean, honestly, from what you described, you figure out stuff by experimenting, and a lot of times that's exactly how it's done. So you need people that are wanting to take action on what they're actually talking about.
100%, hundred
Give me
percent.
1 second. Sorry. All right, I'm
Okay,
back.
perfect. Perfect.
um, okay, so let me think here. Um,
Youth connecting
yes,
with you and
connecting
my
with youth.
childhood, like how I connect with that.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for helping me out there. Yeah, so you explained a lot about like why you work with youth, and it makes a lot of sense. And when you were describing that, again, you mentioned like helping out Nas from 20 years ago and kind of going back to your childhood. So
Yeah.
I'd love to now get into like the story of how you've gotten to where you are. So I don't know if you want to go all the way back to your childhood, or where exactly you want to start. I'll leave that up to you, but I'd love to start diving into your journey.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Um, so I'm not gonna go back to my old childhood. I don't remember that much, like when I was like a 5, 6 years old. But I remember moments from my childhood growing up by the Aegean Sea coast, by Mediterranean, in Turkey, spending time on the beach, riding, bikes, like bicycles, spending some time, like with my friends, traveling, doing all kinds of, like fun things. But I also remember that I was a girl who was too shy,
Mm.
was too shy, like lacking the courage to speak up in the class. And I struggled to express myself. And I didn't really feel successful. that's where it's actually just really hit the point, when I remember, like working with the youth, and I mean, some of their feelings, some of their comments just make me go back to my childhood, because I didn't feel successful, whatever that meant at that time, like being successful. I did not much, like do good at school. I didn't really consider, like as a successful student, that would have been, I would have been considered as a failure back then. So do you see that coding in my mind is Nas should or could or will fail.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I don't remember, like asking myself, what do I love to do? Instead, I followed the rules around education,
Okay.
where I'm from.
Yep.
Where I'm from, yeah. And what teacher taught that I could do or not do. So I never felt like, like sharing my opinion on anything. So that's very, very, like it's what I wanted to actually change for these youth. Like I couldn't really share my opinion. Well, nobody asked my opinion, but I want to ask you, what is your opinion? And when I moved to US, that's what is actually like my journey, and everybody has their own life experience moment. For me, after all these moments of not knowing myself but having fun, being, like feeling like is a failure, but at the same time trying to figure out myself, it just really, really broke down when I actually moved to US when I was 17 years old. Dreams and friends and family and beach, happy thoughts, they all melted away as I faced this big change, and without speaking English.
Mm.
So my English got better, thank God. So now that
So you moved to the US at 17 without speaking any English.
yes, no
Wow.
English, and from like this Mediterranean, like a Asian, like a coast, coast where I was, spending most of my time. I moved to Lawrence, Kansas.
Okay.
So that's a big, big, big,
Yeah, huge change.
change. You're not only crossing the ocean, you are actually just going to a place where they don't know where you're from.
Mm-hmm.
um, and I didn't know how to navigate through the unexpected experience. So this is what I think people are actually just having these experiences that are unexpected in their
Mm-hmm.
life, um, and that just changes everything. So that moment, I was just challenging to rebuild, like the many things that I had left behind, and the work required new skills,
Mm-hmm.
even a new identity. Because as I was telling you, I don't think I had an identity when I was, like in Turkey, because as I was just remembering myself, not knowing, what I like, I was just living a life. I was breathing, I was having fun, but not really understanding my identity.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of, like also happens with society, like around the world. So it's not just Turkey, it's, globally, globally when we think about it. I was doing a research, like the other day, for one of my keynote speaking with youth. Um, I think it was like a 2022 last year, in April. Only 27% of the like graduates, like around the world, that does what they study.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a huge opportunity, for you to actually ask themselves, what do I love to do? And in our society, like Adam, when you ask this question about like why do you go back to like a youth, or what is just fulfills you,
Mm-hmm.
or why I'm picking that target audience, in organizations, because in most of the society, or at least I'm going to talk about my society, like where I came from. When we were little, we were taught love as to be loved, to be approved. So like going back to your question, about love is the best ingredients, you don't find that when you were in that society. You just need to make sure that someone else loves you and someone else approves you.
Mm-hmm.
So like, let's say, if you're a smart kid, your teacher will love you. If you finish your meal, mommy will take you to the park. if you study your lesson, you will be successful and everybody will love you. So when you quoted this, can you imagine like raising your hand? It's like, oh, I want to be a DJ, in your really? That is not being approved. You
Right.
cannot be a DJ, like in Europe. So no one told us that we would be happy if we were ourselves.
Mm.
And that's one of the things, that ingredient I want to give to youth. I want to give it to everyone.
I
So
love
I mean,
that.
yeah,
Uh,
I work with managers and like, let's say, CEOs, like in organization, if they're willing to go back to their childhood and find their purpose. So I'm not really, for my individual session, I'm not really just kind of like limiting myself, like with like a youth is just like like my ecosystem with
yeah.
us. But for individuals, I think everybody should look at their natal chart, because I always follow the Mark Twain's like quote, where it says there are two important days in your life. The first one is the day you're born, which is the natal chart, because that's the snapshot of who you are, or like the day that you're born.
Hmm.
And when you understand why, and the why is like why you do what you do.
Hmm.
So that's why like I always like putting myself in a shape of um
Hmm.
someone else needs to like it. We can take a step because of our society just needs that, we need to satisfy. And so that's why it's just really like hit me so much when I started like going back to when I was like 20s. I mean, if you look at my background, I was telling, like a youth, you can look at me on LinkedIn, you can see like how many, certification that I got, how many schools I have finished. When you look at carefully, you can see that I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah, because there was so much experimenting. And I mean, before you move forward there, I just wanted to comment on one thing here. So number one, as you said, that you were basically telling yourself that you're gonna fail. You kind of like programmed that way. And number two was that um you didn't necessarily share your opinion because nobody necessarily asked, and you were just like, I'm just going to follow the rules that are in place. And so it's very clear in terms of like how you weren't able to necessarily find a little bit more out about yourself because there was no experimentation and no sharing of your opinion, and to understand how that fit in with the different people around you or the different views that were within the classroom, because you were just like, yeah, I'm just going to keep this stuff to myself. I'm just going to follow the rules, and then we're going to, continue moving forward. And so I just wanted to highlight that because I think it's quite common. And if you look at your resume, if you look at my resume, like everything, like the same thing. You can look at my thing and you're like, he had no idea what to do. But like in each moment, I was like, maybe it's this, maybe it's this. Okay, let me go pursue this. I, I've literally been in jobs some days for 2 days, and I'm like, yeah, nope, don't want to do it. And then I apply for 40 other jobs to try and find something else as fast as possible. Like I like to jump to different things to find out if I really like it or not.
Yes, you're right. And it goes back to, like being in the comfort zone, right?
Hmm.
So if someone tells you, like what is right, or, like what you can do or can't, it's just much easier. You don't put any effort. So getting out of your comfort zone and just, like exploring yourself, it just really got a lot of work. We
Hmm.
are just talking as we're laughing, but I had tears on my eyes. I mean, they were asking me, like where I'm from. They didn't know where Turkey was. And I failed my psychology class. I really wanted to study. Like, imagine, like you're on the beach, you just like don't have any any English, and you come to US. You're like, okay, this is your psychology 101 class, and there's like 1,000 people, and you don't really understand what the teacher is saying. So I failed so many times, and I wanted to quit, like everything, so many times. And I think everything that I mentioned, Adam, all these, like life experiences, I think it prepared me for today to be an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
I don't get scared of failing. And I think that's what, like the youth needs to understand. They don't have to be an entrepreneur. They don't have to come out with a super, like a genius idea in technology, but there shouldn't be scare of discovering themselves. And
Yeah.
if they do that, imagine how the world is going to be changing in organizations
Yeah,
and
100%.
around the world. So
I love how you put that, because it's not about, oh, they need to figure it out right now. Oh, they need to be an entrepreneur. Oh, they need to be the super innovative CEO or co-founder or something like that. That's not what it's about at all. It's literally about self-discovery. It's about, and I mean, I think that you and I both are like, how can we change the narrative a little bit and create different prompts that encourage self-reflection in a different way to help the youth try to understand a little bit more about who they are and what they might want to do in the future.
yes, you're right. Because like to your point, yes, my resume is very, it's built in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
People, they're coming to me. I was like, oh my God, like, nice. I really want to work in these organizations. I really want to do this. What are some of the, like, certification that I can do to develop myself? And I stopped them there, Adam. I stop. Why do you think that you need to develop yourself every day?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, you just don't need to do things every day. And I don't recommend you any certification first. So in order for me to actually do this, I just had to go through this, like my whole life journey, and it kind of helps. And my natural gift, like everybody has it, because in the organization that I work, like I had background in HR, working with, like a global matrix organization in a very diverse, like with working maybe more than 10 different cultures. It taught me that um, we all have talent hidden inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we think that what we are qualified for is what we want to do. See, I
Mm.
want to repeat this. What we are qualified and what we are capable of doing is what we want to do. It's not. I can be a great project manager by whole my life. I can be the head of project management department, and I can earn a lot of money, and I can actually think that I'm happy. But even if you're qualified or you're capable of doing it, let's meet.
Yeah, like it doesn't mean you're automatically, it doesn't mean that because you're qualified you're automatically doing what you love to do, right?
Exactly.
Like you said, you could be the project manager and that could be what you love to do. And there are plenty of people out there that fit that persona, right? But there are people out there that are qualified in project management or data analytics or marketing or whatever, and they're doing that because they've gotten the degree or the certification or whatever, but they're not totally fulfilled in that. But it's like,
In
oh,
that.
I've spent all this time, so I'm going to continue to do it.
Yes, it goes back to, like, love is the ingredient. So
Mm-hmm.
if they actually feel that, they're not going to even like feel like, oh, I'm going to work. It's just more like the time goes by, you know 8 hours just went by. And if you go to another person, oh my God, like my body is actually just in pain. I'm gonna go to another. So your body, it's telling you. And that's also, I work with a lot of, people when we go through, like a natal chart, or, like their journey of, awaking, like acceptance and connecting, like with the model that I built. But at the same time, our soul gets sick first. That's so
Interesting.
important. I want to repeat it. Our soul gets sick first,
What do you mean by
not,
that?
not our body. Like,
Mm.
let's say that I have a lot of pain, like on my shoulder, and I have a lot of, like my back hurts. No, no, no. Yes, it is true. Yes, but your soul hurts first. Your soul is sick. So if we actually heal that, and if we can actually open the doors that you want to see mirror you
Mm-hmm.
the way that you want to move on with your life, the pain goes away. So
Mm.
I work with, the sound healer, like the healing that does, with piano. I also do a lot of, like myself, with them one-on-one coaching. Um, it's really like people that who wants to do and
Mm-hmm.
step and turns their dreams into reality. I think the world giving us that chance.
Yeah, and that's really intriguing topic, and I definitely have some questions around it. I definitely have some questions around that topic. But before we get into that, because I think that we could spend a good amount of time on that, I want to get back to your story about, we started talking about kind of going into your 20s, and I want to understand a little bit more of like, when was the point where you started to actually share your opinion and to see how that landed and how that sort of flowed with the different personalities that were in the room? When did you start to change your relationship with failure? Did that happen in your 20s, or did that start happening later on?
Um, Later on.
Okay.
I think it just started like 3 years ago, a little bit. It started 3 years ago, a little bit. And
Okay.
then I thought that I was actually giving my opinion on anything, but just because you're coded, just like imagine you're like a computer, right? You have the coding, you need to unlock that coding. You know how organizations say, I'm going to unlock your potential.
Yeah.
Individual needs to unlock their potential, and that's where I come in for the management trainings and early career professionals to help the organizational growth, but at the same time helping individuals with their career journey. And that's kind of like matches my background with global human resources experience. So
Right. Makes sense. And how old are you now?
41.
41. So this
Yes.
started, when you say a few years ago, this started like 37, 38.
Yeah, 37, 38. My dad still thinks that I'm 40. I don't know, but I am 41. So when he listens, he's gonna be like, no, you're 40. No, I'm 81 born. So I just turned, 41. So
Yeah. Gotcha. All right. So the reason why I asked that is just important in terms of the context of, like, you said that we were talking about your journey, and we're moving into
mhm,
sort of your 20s, and you were in the US and facing brand new experiences and understanding that you don't necessarily have the tools or resources available to deal with unexpected changes and to deal with uncertainty. And it wasn't until you're 38 that you really started to sort of figure things out differently and to focus on certain things. So I want to make sure that that's clear, because sometimes we hear about these quick fixes and like find your purpose in 90 days and whatever, and it doesn't always happen like that. Sure, I'm sure that there are some cases out there where that happens, but a majority of the time that's not the case. And for your story, it's not necessarily the case either.
yes, because I mean, for 90 days or any days or years in my specific story, it just starts with learning English first. I mean, I thought for a while that everybody's name was Dude. You
Oh my
know,
goodness. Oh wow. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But
yeah,
like,
like
as
hey dude,
As an English speaker, you would never think that.
yeah, like hey dude. I was like, oh, dude must be a very common, like a name in the
Oh
U.S.
my goodness. Wow. Yeah, it makes total sense.
So yeah, before even coming to my purpose or what I do. But always, if you listen to yourself, your personality comes out as you are facing challenges. As I was facing challenges, like how I speak, like how I need to speak English, I that's what you were saying, like GPS. You can't really put, direction GPS or go right, left. No, you're just gonna hit the wall. So when you hit the wall is what is you learn, like turning obstacles into advantages. So
Mm.
since I started doing this, like when I was in the early ages, I'm that's why my son says, we don't face problems, mom, we solve them.
That's amazing. Are you serious? Your 10-year-old says that?
Because we got with that motto for from Boston trip, because we wanted to play soccer, in the park, and we went everywhere. We couldn't find a soccer ball or any kind, and he wanted to have like swimming because the weather was nice. And he always tells me that, mom, you always find solutions. And then I actually just went to Starbucks, asked people where can we find it, and we went to I think Marshall or somewhere. We went and we found that soccer ball. And then we went to a park, and a 10 years old told me, said, we don't face problems, mom, we solve them. And
That's
I'm like,
amazing. I
yeah,
love that.
yeah. So
I think that's a huge win. Like, I want to like almost like congratulate you on that, because I mean, like, what his mentality comes a lot from you. And like I think I think that's incredible, because one of the things that I would love to do with my kids when I have them someday is to really focus on creating this different relationship with failure than what I had, because I was terrified of failure. I ran away from it any chance that I could get, and I really want to change that with my children.
Yes, I think that's one of the things that, I happen to um, just kind of explain to my son.
Hmm.
Anytime that I experience something, or anytime I find an opportunity that for him to keep in mind something instead of just dumping him, like all the information in one, 45 minutes. That's why, like sometimes, being in HR for 20 years, when you have a 45 minutes training every month for 6 months, you're not going to understand. That is not going to just, like a stick to it. It is
Hmm.
not going to stick. But if you actually just, like divide that into pieces, and for individual, like tailor made for Adam, for Nas, then it will click.
Hmm.
So this is exactly what I was doing, because when he was learning riding a bicycle, for example, I remember, and I said, you are going to fail. You are going to fail. You're going to fall. But what we do when we fall, we get up, we move
Hmm.
forward. And that has been my life too, Adam. Reflection as a mom, just being strong, making decisions, facing the problems, and it kind of forces you to find the solution. You just need to want it to do it.
Yeah.
And this is what had happened when I was 17. They're like, okay, how can I learn slang words? Apparently, dude is not a name. So I say, okay, so we're gonna talk with the, saying what's up, and then I studied French because I love French. So I said, okay, you don't need to give up because you fail your psychology class.
Hmm.
Then I studied French. I went to France, and then my English got better. My English just became my almost like a native language. The second one was French, and the third one was Turkish when I speak with my parents. So it's the effort. It's the effort, that you take the step. But being comfortable on your chair, why would you get up?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And that's a lot of the times the way that we think, or the way that we're programmed to think. And it's like, yeah, it's comfortable, but eventually you stand up and you're going to have trouble walking, because your back is going to hurt, because your hamstrings are super tight from sitting there the entire time, right? Like you need to get up and walk
Yes,
around, even though it might be uncomfortable at first.
yes, and it will
100%.
be so awkward if I come and tell you, Adam, I want you to feel good today. Like, why would I say that if Adam doesn't want to feel good today?
Hmm.
It's so much work. That's why the organizations are trying to make people for a leader. I don't want to be a leader. Why you're making me a leader? So that's why, like getting into an early career stage, it's kind of like it's a win-win situation. So that's what
Yeah.
I picked that target audience.
Yeah. And that's amazing. And I love that. So after you started learning English and then French, so as as if one language was enough, you started learning another one, which is awesome. So English, French, and Turkish, and you're in your 20s now. How did your experience in the U.S. change? Did you stay here for long before moving somewhere else? What happened next?
Yes. So after I learned English, you know how you asked the question when we first started? You said who you are, Nas. And I said, I'm very enthusiastic. I love having fun. I started having fun. I met with every single international student that could be there in Lawrence, Kansas, because there was an exchange student. So I had friends from all over the world, Adam. And they said, if you want to speak English, you need to go to house parties. I started going to house parties.
That's good advice.
It's a good advice.
Yeah.
And I'm always, like I had some talent inside of me, just kind of organizing, motivating, finding solution. Okay, it's snowing. Oh, we don't want to go anywhere. Like, where we can do this and that. So then it started, kind of a community that I built, in Lawrence, Kansas. And then everybody was just going out and having fun. I went to France. I came back. And then I graduated from University of Kansas, Jayhawks. I learned basketball.
Hey, there you go.
I was joking with my son. I still can get the football and baseball, but it's been 20 years. I still have some time. I can still learn the rules. But it's funny that I came to New York, and that's a whole different story.
Right after graduating, you came to New
Right
York?
after graduating,
Okay.
yes. And because I love to get energy, and like I love to build my life. I know that Kansas, Lawrence, it's good for university, but I need to get out of there. It was so funny. I actually came to New York for a non-paid internship for 3 months. I came here, and the internship got canceled.
Oh no.
And my parents said, Naz, I can only afford you for 3 months, in New York. There's no way I can afford you. Then I started using my French. So this is how it comes from, like a problem and solving. I started working as a receptionist in a finance French company. I was in the reception. All I was doing, Adam, opening the door.
Oh my goodness.
I was just like pressing, and sometimes people got stuck in the door because I was talking to someone else. Like even in that job, I wasn't good at it. But I love networking. I love building new things. I
Mm-hmm.
love that, like when you ask me who I am, it kind of, like even if you want to hide, even if some people they're trying to hide their personality, it comes out. It
Yeah.
comes out. And I was networking, and I said, "Oh, I'm looking for a job," because it was a part-time job, or it was a contractor job. And then they said, "Oh, there's this job at Merrill Lynch
Mm-hmm.
in 2006." Yeah,
Okay.
2006. And I asked, and they said, "Would you go for an interview? It's a very entry level job, and you will have the full time job. You're gonna have." And I said, "Okay." And then I asked myself, "What do they do? I have no idea what do they do. Like, maybe I need to research what they do before I go to, like for an interview." And that night, I study what they do, um, and and I went for an interview. I had like 7 interviews that I got in Merrill Lynch. And when I got into Merrill Lynch, that's when I actually decided to study finance.
Ah, okay.
So that's where I went to, Columbia University. I think, you know what, Naz? You study French. Now it's time for finance. How can someone build their life like this? Adam, tell me, please. I killed myself after work. I was, working 24/7, like a London time. Um, I was learning a lot. But then why did I kill myself for 2 years, like in finance? Because I really thought that learning finance is going to make me smarter
Mm.
in the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Then I started in, like a finance, and then I moved to, NYU. I said, okay, now let's explore human resources. So it goes back to, what I told you. Yes, I'm capable of doing it. I can finish maybe 2 more universities, but that's not what makes, like Nas happy.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
What
Nas,
what's what's interesting as well, like the fact that you and I have this in common is like if we go into something like we're gonna do it 100%, like we're gonna go in really hard. Like if it's finance or HR, whatever it is, it's like, oh, this new thing. All right, maybe this is what I want to do. Maybe this is the answer. We kind of go all in, but like very quickly, if it's 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever, and we're like, yeah, we don't like it, then we try to find out like what's next, right? And I think that there are often times where people will say like, oh, well, just give it another 6 months, right? And it's
yeah,
like, but if I know in my core, like if I'm not trying hard and I say I don't like it, then I can understand like the, oh, just give it another 6 months. But if I know like in my core that I've given this thing like a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of effort, and I know in my soul that it's like not right for me, then like 6 months is enough. Like I don't need another 6 months to know that like
yeah,
this isn't what I want to do.
yes,
Right. There is definitely some, you know, some good advice in terms of stability when it comes to like don't start another thing until you like don't quit this job until you have another job, right? That's always kind of been like a rule in my family when I was growing up, and I followed that.
Yeah, me too.
But if I find out after 2 days, 5 weeks, 6 months, whatever, a year, that it's just not for me, it's not serving me whatsoever, like it's okay to move on to something else.
Yes. And just based on that, I want to ask a question to you,
Oh,
to
absolutely.
our audiences. Like, why do you spend so much time preparing a presentation that will make people happy versus, like spending some kind of preparation for yourself? Why don't you just, like, based on your comments, why don't you spend more time for yourself? You are the one that who makes the world change, or doing that presentation or going to that meeting. Like, why not you first?
Hmm.
And I think that's what it comes, like with your comments, that you cannot put yourself first. You need to find a job first. And that's what it just, kind of sometimes happen. Universe is helping me. So I lost
Hmm.
my job, in January of this year. And I was just so insecure. It's like, I lost my job. What am I going to do? But sometimes the universe is helping us.
Hmm.
Just believe in that. When
Oh,
you lose a job, when you lose a job, you're like, oh, that was the pain for. Oh, my soul was really sick. Not because, like I wasn't really successful or I wasn't really liking the organization. I love the people. I still talk to people. It's why. Why don't you come first
mm.
as a person?
It's a great question, and I like that. I think we should all reflect on that one just a little bit more, because again, just kind of tying into a comment earlier, like we're always running around and just doing this and doing that, but it's like you first type of thing.
Yes.
And that's actually I'm happy that you're bringing this up. And today, as we're recording, it's Monday, April 17th, and like I'm at a moment right now where I'm need to focus more on myself. I've been kind of in this grind mode a little bit for the last like three and a half weeks, and I've said a couple times like I need to make sure that like I reestablish my morning routine. I need to be exercising a little bit more regularly, because I can feel my body like slowing down a little bit. And what's difficult for me, and I was planning on sharing this on social media today, which I probably still will, but one thing that is going on in my head right now, a thought that I had this morning, was that I absolutely love doing these interviews. I love them, and they light my soul on fire, because it's just having another amazing conversation with an incredible human like yourself. And I get to learn so much about you. And as soon as I put the headphones on and start the interview, like I am all in. I'm so focused, and I'm just like, nothing else matters. I'm just all in on this. Just doesn't matter how I feel beforehand. There's been a
Yeah.
couple times over the last couple weeks where I'm like dragging my feet a little bit, and I'm like I just maybe today's not the day. But then like 2 hours later, I start the episode, and I'm like, boom. I'm just like, and it's not like a performance type of thing. It's actually different, because I've gone through a period in my life before where I've had to feel like I'm performing, and then afterwards I'm like completely drained and like no
Oh,
fulfillment at all. This is more like I absolutely love doing this, and so I don't have to force myself to perform or anything. But so what I'm getting at here is like to kind of push myself a little outside my comfort zone to do an episode even when I'm not feeling motivated is okay. But
yeah.
if I continue to do it over and over again, eventually the dragging my feet is going to turn into ignoring other things about my self-care. And I need to be very conscious of that and very intentional about that, because I want to do this long term. I don't want to do this for like 2 months. I want to do this for like 20 years. So I need to refocus a little bit. So thank you for the prompt on
Oh, you're
that.
welcome. I work with youth, like youth. We started podcast. I
Hmm.
have my podcast, like, it's in Turkish, so I'm gonna be continuing, um, um, you know, youth around the world, but it started with, like Turkish, because I told you I was connected with Isaac organization. It's so funny. They were just, like, what do we do, Nas, in the podcast? Like, we never done this before. And there were specific, like students that, they really wanted to do, but they just, like, want you to hold the hand first because they're scared.
Hmm.
They're not focused, but they have all the knowledge that they can actually just express and really just feel happy. They want to
Hmm.
do it. And I said, you know what? I said, guys, I have no idea how to do podcast. Does it make you feel good? They're like, oh, really? I have no idea. we're going to just get up and do my hair, a little bit makeup, helps. But and just go with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to prepare yourself. You kind of be yourself. And I specifically work with some of the students. Adam, it was amazing. I hold hand. I said, "Are you ready to just jump off the airplane? Is that how you feel? Are you ready? I think we're ready. We jump together. We did our first episode together. Oh my God, right now I cannot stop him. And they're going around and they're just, like finding all these, like influencers,
Mm-hmm.
they're just, like trying to share. So like to your point, I cannot focus as well. Sometimes I got a puzzle. And it took me like an hour and a half just to focusing on the puzzle. And I got the puzzle specifically on the astrology so that I can focus on the astrology. And then my son comes in and is like, Mom, are you going to keep this, like puzzle for another year here? Oh, yes. Get up, Nas. So anything that you actually, like pull yourself out of that um, unfocused moment,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna feel good. You
Yeah.
just like you were saying, like you need to put that headphone, you start talking to people, and Adam's energy just, like flows to the audience, and that's what they need. So that's what I'm here. Why would I be here, if you didn't have that energy, that will be so like, because I can't have a poker face. Like you wouldn't be able to talk more than 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, 100%, absolutely. And I love that you said to your students, like, I don't know how to do a podcast. Does that make you feel better? And like, there's so that scenario, that situation is so powerful because the connection kind of like helps people to really understand the situation better, right? And I think that a big reason of sharing stories like this, like your story and so many others on the podcast, is to show people that like there are a lot of other people that you can relate to, that we all deal with struggles and we all deal with not being able to, figure it out, not know what we want to do or why we're doing it or all of this stuff. And so it's like, once you hear that, it's like, oh, okay, I don't feel as much pressure anymore. Okay, we can mess up a little bit. Like when you tell your son, like, all right, you're going to ride a bike and you are going to fail. Like you are going to fall and you are going to, maybe hurt yourself a little bit. But what do? We get back up, right? It's like, don't be naive to the fact that failure is there, because it most likely will happen in one way or the other. We just have to like, and just acknowledging it is such a big important step, I think.
Yeah, and Adam, I went to zoo and aquarium, in Boston,
Mm-hmm.
and I was with animals, and then I realized, I think as a human, we think that we're so special, but we're not. They have fear. They show love. I actually just had a video on my Instagram, and two penguins. Um, they were lovers. You could tell. Penguins. They don't talk first. They give space. They look at each other, they respect, and then they hug each other. I said, this is the best and shortest podcast to show a relationship. Don't think too much. Penguins are showing you how to show love, space to your loved ones, and respect. And you can just,
Mm-hmm.
that's the easiest way. So sometimes we just think that we're trying to complicate things. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
Like, make it as simple.
I like
Make it
that.
simple.
I
Make your life simple.
Yeah, I really like that. And there's a lot of inspiration that we can draw from animals and
Oh,
nature
yes.
about so many different things. And we can again get on another tangent about all of those things for sure. I want to get back to your career, because you said that you started in HR and you were in
Mhm.
HR for almost 20 years, I believe. Is that if I remember that number correctly?
Yes, I think
Um,
18. I didn't count the years, but yeah.
yeah. So tell me a little bit about your experience there, kind of like briefly why you went into HR. I know you said that you were kind of like, oh, all right, finance wasn't the thing. Maybe I'll try HR. Was there more to it than that? And then tell me a little bit about your experience, and then we'll sort of jump into how your most recent job ended and what that has led to.
Okay, sure. So I was working in finance, and in finance, I got involved in some of HR projects, infrastructure project, and compensation and recruitment. And then, since like my personality is really like enthusiastic, and I result driven, and I love to, I love to build things. I love putting dots together. So when I did that with business and HR together, and my manager at that time said, I would never forget, is that if HR is doing their job well, my job will be easier.
Mm.
Oh, I can make that job easier. Of course, you just take on responsibilities. And then I went to information session at NYU. I said, okay, well, it's very analytic. So you learn finance, and you also learn, like metrics. You learn people management. You learn organizational assessment. So I really liked it. So I finished my master's there.
Hmm.
As I was going through my master's, I did my internship at UN. On the recruitment side, I did a lot of like internship on the recruitment, talent management, compensation, organizational development, I mean, you name it. But I worked in the large organization where I partner with the business a lot, because do you remember, like I remember, like building that connection
Hmm.
in finance, that I need to connect to business. I always loved, if I don't understand the business, I cannot do HR. So when I was working, like in HR, I was also, being on the field. If I'm working on sales, I work with sales employees on the field. And I built, but always, like always my favorite part of, HR was always talent. I always, like kind of driven by talent, and almost like reading their talents and skills and potential into their career
Mm.
path.
Okay.
And I was doing that as natural, even
Right.
if my job just description wasn't that.
Hmm.
So, but I also just, like realize right now that whatever I was doing at that time, now that I know myself better, I was trying to build something, like build a company in the company. You can't really do that. You need to follow the rules in the company.
Yeah. Yeah. Of
You can't
course.
really just do whatever you want. But I always was driven by talent analysis, talent development, and it should kind of like make sense
Hmm.
with what I do as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. And it sounds like you started to sort of uncover that passion for helping other people and helping them develop skills and helping them to reflect a little bit more on what they're doing and why they're doing and how they want to get from point A to point B. Is
Yes,
that right?
yes. Imagine like my job description is A. I always come with the B and C to
Hmm.
do it, and I overkill myself and can spend time with my son, but I feel like I'm happy.
Mm, interesting.
But it's not.
Yeah.
So my job is A. You're supposed to do A, but I'm driven by B and C because I can't do only one thing. I need to build things and be creative. But there isn't any space to be creative in an organization because there are many other people like you. You're not special in any way, but you're special to yourself.
Hmm.
And then when you come home and you are bringing that ABC onto your shoulders, how can you not, how can you feel happy, how can you feel love, how can you feel quality time? Yes, you receive money, it comes with the paycheck, but believe me, I think money shouldn't be the it should only be a vehicle. It shouldn't be the life purpose. That's what I was telling my son as well.
Hmm.
And he was saying like, oh, you know what, are you the CEO of this? I was like, yes. And then he goes, are we earning money? Because it seems like we're spending money in Boston. I said, you know what? Sometimes quality of time worth more than money, Barrick. Maybe you know what? We talk about my son so much because I'm gonna do a podcast with him. I'm gonna send it to you. It's
Please
gonna be
do.
in English. Like if you want to listen, because he loves to talk about living your true self. from
Yeah.
his perspective.
Yeah, I would love that. That would be amazing. I would
Yeah.
absolutely love to listen to that. That would be really interesting. I mean, like your son sounds so insightful, and I love it. Like the questions that he asks are so interesting. I would love to hear the episode and maybe even to just have a conversation with the kid. Like that'd be so much fun.
Yeah, well, he has a busy agenda. You know, I try
He's
to
got
help him.
meetings booked. He's got meetings booked.
He got me. And sometimes I tell him, like, do you want to do soccer? Do you want to do baseball? Do you want to do this? And then he says, Mom, I need some time for myself too. It seems like this many activity seems to be good, but I don't want to do that because it's so overwhelming. Overwhelming. The word overwhelming is equal to everybody's life that are working nonstop in the organizations
Hmm.
or whatsoever, wherever they want to work. And that overwhelming,
Yeah.
it turns into sickness,
Hmm.
and depression, low morale. Uh,
Yeah, I mean the fact that he has that vocabulary and
oh,
says overwhelming and uses it in the appropriate context, like that is impressive. And I mean it's a great way to communicate because it also it communicates urgency as well. It's
yes,
not like, oh, I don't want to, because I think we hear that a lot from children and even from adults, like, "Ah, I don't want to do that." And it's like, okay, well, you're probably just being lazy, right? Or something along those lines. Where if somebody
yes,
says like, no, I don't want to do it, it's really overwhelming, you're kind of like, oh, what do you mean by that? What part of it is overwhelming? And then it might uncover a lot more, and maybe we can delegate some tasks, or maybe you just find out that it's just not for you. But I think that vocabulary is really important. um, what I want to jump into is, you mentioned something important when you're describing your job, and that is your job is A, but you are driven by B and C, and you want to try to incorporate these things into here, into job description A. But because there's not really room for it in the organization, there's this sort of disconnect and these sort of barriers. And excuse me, eventually you're like, I'm not really fulfilled or happy because I can't really pursue these things, but they're on my mind a lot. And I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself to do all of these things, even though my job description is only A. So, like, that sounds overwhelming in itself. And
so.
so, tell me about, like, briefly about what that was like in your job and how that drove you to do your own thing eventually and to leave the corporate world.
Well, actually, when your job is A and you're trying to do B and C, that means you're doing other people's job. They
Yeah,
don't like
exactly.
that.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that just gives an answer. So, if you're doing an A and if you're trying to just, like do B and C and trying to connect, you're acting like you're a CEO or you're just head of something.
Hmm.
But you're not, because, you can't just, do other people's job and make the connection, because that's so disrespectful. So, but at the same time you can stop it because that's what you're driven for.
Hmm.
So just like a back and forth. So I think the moment that I realized that I wasn't really into HR anymore, although I really loved it, I learned a lot, is when I really wanted to go to the business. That was my last, like 6 months before I actually just lost my job because I was in the business. As I was doing the business, or I was learning the business as a not HR person, but the business person, I still wanted to do other things around people management. So it kind of, like, oh, I'm almost like I'm building a company, you know,
Hmm.
like I'm building a company. I'm putting the dots together. Um, but sometimes things happen. I wasn't able to see it that clearly at that time, and because of some of the changes and the fast growing, startup organization, and there was a elimination of that role. So it was a kind of like a, how we say organic growth.
Hmm.
It's an organic layout. So organically, like I kind of like, had to leave the organization. And then one of my friends, because I can't stop, Adam. See, like starting, like all my, like stories that I've been telling from
Hmm.
17 years old, I'm always, like, doing things.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine that after New Year, you're just like, you have no job. What do? Do you spend time with your son, play Minecraft, which I really don't know how, like how much you can actually sit next to your loved ones when you are still in that container.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to get myself out of that container. I needed to understand my body, and saying that, okay, Naz, you have pain. You have pain on your shoulder, you have pain on your back. Um, like, to your point, I was like, what do you like to do? Do you like to work out? Mm, I do, but not so well. So I went to discover, Pilates, like a classes.
Mm-hmm. Pilates, yeah.
Yeah. I came home. I started crying from the class. And my mom was here. And then she said, why are you crying? I said, Mom, this is the first time I did something for myself.
Oh.
This is the first time my body was thanking me. You should keep doing this, because it was giving me a focus, Adam, because you need to focus when you're doing that. You need to
Mm-hmm.
balance yourself. And then I keep thinking about, oh, I need to balance myself. So it's a kind of a process of like 3 months, as I was getting into astrology. And when I look at the astrology, I didn't really understand what the Saturn was doing, or, like Jupiter was doing. I was just reading mine first,
Mm-hmm.
right? So because if I don't read mine, and if I don't really understand my journey, how can I help others? And then that journey started with that. I fell in love. I said, Naz, you've been doing this for the past 20 years. You were reading their natal chart. You just didn't put it in an astrological way. But now it comes to me so naturally, Adam, that, like you were saying, I can get up at 6 o'clock. I can get a call, and I can just look at their natal chart. I can meet with them, and we can start the journey.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to you easily, naturally, that's your power.
Mm-hmm.
I want everybody to hear that when it comes to you naturally, with your natural talented gift that has been given to you by birth, that's what I'm reading. And then people realize that, oh, can I sing? Really? I was singing, like when I was in high school, or I was helping children, and when I was, like 6, 7 years old, but I never thought I can go back to that. Well, you don't have to. You can still keep your job and do what you do, but you can add that, because that fulfills you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I actually just brings the ingredient of love, Adam.
Wow, interesting. And did you ever even think that you would have fallen in love with astrology, that you would even have given it the time of day before?
No, not at all. My mom's still in shock.
Yeah.
My mom and my dad is like, oh, you know what? I would expect anything from you. You're just kind of like, you are gonna find your way. You're just so, like driven and ambitious. My mom is like, astrology? Oh, how does that work? Really? Are you gonna do HR and astrology? So it was just so much difficult
Yeah.
from that society to accept, because they're like, oh, you finished three university and school, and now you're just like doing another thing. Yes, because I don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't give up. Like my son is saying, we don't face problems, we solve them. And life is gonna come to you with problems, because it's a puzzle. It's a theater that we all play.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to be on that stage.
Yeah, and I love that you're on that stage. I think it's a really interesting way to describe it, because I mean, what it sounds like, and I can relate to this, is that you try a bunch of stuff. Like, learning by experimenting is all about, like, whatever feels right to you in the moment. Don't think about it, just go do it, right? Just go do it, because that's the way that you're going to figure it out. And it's okay if that's not the thing, right? The idea is to not find the answer right away. The idea is to just try a bunch of stuff to see what you do and don't like, and to learn more about yourself, because, like, at the end of the day, it's self-discovery above everything. And so you try thing number one, and maybe you find, okay, I really like this piece of it, but I don't like anything else. So you take that one piece and you just, like, put it in your cookie jar. You put it in your piggy bank to kind of document, okay, I like that aspect of it. You go try another thing, and so on and so on and so on. And eventually you're like, I love these pieces of HR, but I really just couldn't do what I really wanted to do because like there was a missing piece and I wasn't able to add it in the environment that I was in. But now I can actually add it here. So you started to actually put together that little purpose puzzle. I like that term. I just came up with that, a little purpose puzzle.
Yeah.
And then as you're exploring that, you're just open to the different possibilities of like what you could add along the way that you could learn more about yourself, but also maybe use as a way to service other people, like astrology, for example.
Yes, yes. And I'm teaching, like a special student this. I had a student yesterday that when we met, she's studying engineering at school. And when I look at the, like her natal chart, I can tell that she loves art, but I didn't tell anything. And she was working in a bank, like as an internship. And after like a half an hour, like using, like you said, using my HR skills for like the past like like 20 years, adding the astrology about like what are your characteristic, and like what is your true north, because true node is what it just shows in astrology. And I said, do you love dancing? And she's like, I love dancing. Well, that's exactly what you need to do, well, as you are like doing like engineering. And then at the end, it was so interesting, Adam. We repeated the sentence that she actually said it loud that she hears. She said, I think I don't like my job right now, Naz. Oh, amazing. Can we repeat that? I do not like my job right now. I am not happy at my job. Amazing. So now you have a plan. If you need to continue until this summer, you know that after summer, you have light at the end of the tunnel. You know you're going to put that purpose puzzle. I like that actually, purpose puzzle. And then you're going to actually integrate those. That's what I give the secret sauce, Adam.
Yeah, I like that secret sauce. I like the purpose puzzle.
Yeah, we have so many, like a foundation, like through this podcast.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's really cool. I like how this is all come together. And Naz, you've shared so much about your story, and I really appreciate you taking the time today to bring us all the way back to when you were 17 and coming to the US with knowing zero English all the way until now, really finding your own purpose and really being focused on self-discovery and helping others, especially the youth, kind of discover that as well. So I appreciate you taking the time to do that. And as we wrap up here, I'm going to do something a little bit different than what I've done before. So normally I ask the guests the same one question at the end. But the other day, my wife and I recorded an episode of talking about our relationship. And I asked her two specific questions at the end, and I really like them. So now I'm just going to combine them. I'm going to ask you three questions. Just give me a brief answer, the first thing that sort of comes to your mind, and we'll see how it goes. Are you up for it?
Yes. Oh,
awesome. Awesome. All right. Question number one is, what are you currently struggling with?
Focusing.
Interesting.
Yes, I cannot focus because my mind goes 100 miles an hour. And I'm struggling on focusing and finishing something. So that's why I am putting a lot of effort for that struggle.
Interesting. What kind of tools and techniques have you used that have helped you the most in terms of focusing?
Getting a puzzle. Because you need to sit down and focus, and poultry, like you do with your hands, because you focus.
Doing what? Sorry.
Poultry.
Poultry. I'm not sure what that is.
Maybe I'm mispronouncing.
That's okay. How do you spell it?
Poulty.
Poulty. I don't know what it is. Okay. You're pronouncing it correctly. I just don't know what it is.
No, I think I am not pronouncing it. That's why my son always says poetry.
Poetry?
No, it's
It's
not
not
poetry.
poetry. I mean, it sounds like that, but you said doing it with your hands. That's okay. No worry.
I need to find it, but yes, yeah. Go ahead. Second question.
Second question is, what are you most excited about in your life right now?
Uh, oh, that's a great question. See, I need to focus and answer one or two. How can, um, well, about my new journey with astrology and helping others. Like every day, when I have a conversation with someone, I just almost like up in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're on the sky, you don't need to focus, which I like. Uh, and second one that I'm excited about my new life and with my son. And because we said that we're going to go around the world, we're going to do a lot of work, with children and youth. And he said, I want to come with you. So that's very something that it's very exciting.
Wow.
And
That's
the third
wonderful.
one, yeah, the third one is, I think, feeling the love every day, um, and not losing it.
Mhm.
Um, just just feeling that love of living and doing something with it. It's so unique. It's like a diamond, that you find in an ocean,
Mhm.
and it's so tough. So I found it, and it just gets me so excited to keep it.
Wonderful. All right. Question number 3 is, what piece of advice would you have for somebody that wants to get more out of life? Somebody who maybe knows that there's something off right now, that this is not their purpose. They want something more out of life, but they're not sure what to do. What would be your one piece of advice for them?
Sure. I would advise them to eliminate dysfunctional beliefs that keeps them in a rabbit hole. They don't realize that they're in rabbit hole. So first of all, accept that you're in rabbit hole. Being in rabbit hole is not bad. It just makes you feel dizzy, which is fine. But you eliminate dysfunctional beliefs. Oh, it's going to take like 2 years to do this. Well, even if you do it or not, that 2 years is going to pass.
Mm.
So why don't you use that time, the moment of truth, where you need to step in and be honest with yourself and accept ourselves the way that we are and not the way that we should be. And it only comes when we uncode those, like dysfunctional beliefs and accept that where we are. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I do with people. And sometimes it's tough because, you know, you don't want to hear you're in a rabbit hole. You want to hear that you're successful, right, Adam? You're just, like on the right path. Just, it's not a comfortable thing to say it. But I usually don't say it. I actually let them say it. That's a totally different things. I help them jump off the plane if you need it, either youth or at any ages. But after that, I don't follow up and say, "Oh, are you gonna fail? Are you gonna do this?" And then I just become their mom. I can barely, like learning life from my son, 10 years old, how to be a mom. So, and so I think that will be my recommendation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for answering those 3 questions. And before we say goodbye, I meant to ask you this earlier, but I forgot. Can you please tell everybody, all the listeners, anybody who's listening right now, where to find you online? Of course, I'm going to put all the links in the description below, so it's super, super easy for them to click on. But where can people find you online?
So I just launched my website is nazliersen.com. So NAZLIERSEN.com. I'm at Instagram. I'm improving my social media skills, and I'm supposed to do some TikToks. Students are telling me that I need to do some TikToks. I don't have that, like address, but Nazli Ersen at Nazli Ersen. They can find me on Instagram, and I'm in LinkedIn again, Nazli Ersen. my first name and last name, easy, and Nazli at nazliersen.com, but it's already on the website. If they want to email me or message me through Instagram, I'm always there.
All right, perfect. Like I said, I'll put all of those links in the description below. So it's super easy to find you online and super easy to reach out to you if anybody has any questions or comments. I encourage you listening right now, if you have, if Naz has shared some advice that is really helpful to you, definitely reach out to her and let her know how it's impacted you, and consider leaving a review on the podcast, because that goes a long way to support it. And we love hearing what you think about each of the episodes. Naz, this has been absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to share your story and to try and inspire people around the world.
Thank you so much, Adam. I'm so happy that we accomplished this, and I was focused on this, which was amazing. Thank you so much for having me, and yeah, we will connect again.
Absolutely, sounds good.